to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. It is the second hour of our Wednesday edition. We got Jane Madnair here. We got Greg Bach on the board. And we have our friend from the Institute for Reforming Government, president of CJ Szafier. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for the diapers.
You're going to need a lot of them.
CJ
so whatever I can do to help.
Walked in, he's here in person. And it was funny that it was so timely because I realized last night out of all the diapers that we've been given, people were thinking ahead. Like my friend I saw yesterday, she gave me size 3. She's like, they're in size 3 for the longest. So that's why I gave you size 3. And I surveyed the nursery and I said, we have no newborn diapers right now. And you brought me newborn diapers. So we will use those first.
You're going to need them really, really soon.
Like right away. And I heard a lot of them.
A lot of them. Have you talked to Mike who's on diaper duty, or is it going to be who's ever closest?
I think it's going to be whoever's closest. I might throw out to him more since I will be on feeding duty for the most part. That seems like a fair division of labor. But yeah, and he can change a diaper. He's not afraid.
Gotta help out.
How did you guys do it when you have with your kids? How did you divide it?
Trying to think if Renee's going to listen to this or not. So,
little revisionist history, perhaps.
She's working now. I was on diaper duty.
Okay.
And you get good at it, right? It's like a skill, and then it just becomes just like riding a bike.
Well, and you don't
have to learn how to distract them so they will sit still.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And you don't have to worry about those enormous safety pins like you're going to impale them on something. with the now they're so zip and cheep and it's pretty quick.
I like those sound effects. All right. Well, we could keep talking about kids, or we could talk about Wisconsin politics. What do you want to talk about, CJ?
Do I have a choice?
Well, yeah, you have a little bit of a choice. I'll give you this choice. Which part of Wisconsin politics do you want to start with?
How many state Supreme Court justices will be there by the time you get back from leave?
Oh, that's a good question. More than 5. Let's start there then. So last week was, as Dan Schaefer tweeted, everything everywhere all at once in Wisconsin politics. From, at the beginning of the week, there was talk of maybe not impeaching because there was a pressure campaign happening. By the end of the week, there was still Voss talking about a secret, anonymous former justice group that he's put together to talk about impeachment. Where, as of right now, do you feel like impeachment does not seem popular? As far as a lot of there was a poll last week that came out that said it's like 24-point margin of how many people do not want Justice Dan Protasewicz to be impeached. And I think it kind of goes back to the same way how Walker over 10 years ago, despite people who did not vote for him originally, were also like, an election's an election and they want him to be able to do his term. And so as far as what you're hearing, do you feel like this is a potential political suicide to really follow through on impeachment threats?
I think it's super hard to say at this point. And I just say this because I don't think the case has been made for impeachment yet, right?
Okay.
So polls, love polls. We all love polls, but let's just concede that there's snapshots in time. And if there hasn't been like a persuasive issue campaign or anything to really move or educate voters, it's going to show one side or the other. And I think if you knee-jerk ask people, do you wish removing the person that just won by 11 points? Their knee-jerk reaction is probably going to be no.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a lot of really bad media, national media, in the last couple of weeks. Certainly doesn't seem like Republicans in the legislature were prepared to make a vigorous defense for impeachment. But, I think it's something that's a very real possibility. Speaker Voss, just reading the tea leaves and reading what everything's been out there, is that something that they're going to continue to dangle that out until they get a definitive answer on recusal? And I think the recusal thing is a real issue. And I certainly appreciate, the both sides and the whataboutisms. But when you just look at just the facts on the paper, right? The $10 million donations from DPW, the statements, you put it all together, I think there's a cloud of a credible case can be made that, yes, while candidate Protasewicz certainly has her First Amendment rights and she can say whatever she wants on the campaign trail, the Constitution protects that. There's also the 14th Amendment, and that's due process. And there's going to be a real discussion, I would guess, on what due process means in Wisconsin. and what we can do to ensure that judges will be fair, unbiased, and impartial. And I think once you see the Republicans lay out that case, if that's the route that they go down, it wouldn't shock me if those numbers move a little bit. But I would readily concede that it's going to be an unpopular uphill battle.
And so when you say that, as far as, because I know, like, I'm upfront, and even this week, Journal Sentinel wrote an article. Wisconsin Supreme Court candidates often speak about hot topics. Only one faces impeachment threat. And on the upfront a week or so ago, when Tyler August was on there, Brian Hagedorn, it was brought up what he said about abortion when he was running, and I'm pretty sure he probably took campaign donations from pro-life groups. And so, what do you see that's different about this, that case could be made, especially considering the Judicial Committee basically dismissed the complaints?
Well, what look, I mean, the recusal stuff, the donations, I mean, how we elect judges and justices is incredibly, I mean, these issues are always around, right?
Mhm.
And it like let's just all be honest, everyone's switching their positions 180 degrees from 6 years ago, from 10 years ago. And that's just kind of the politics of the fact that we elect judges and
Yeah.
justices. And they have to raise money. It's now in 2023 in Wisconsin, like you have to raise about as much money as the gubernatorial race in 2010 and 2012. And that's going to have certain incentives, and a lot of people aren't going to like a lot of people don't like what these elections are becoming, but to some extent that's neither here nor there. I will readily admit that it's just going to be very ugly given different elections 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. um I think the biggest issue for Pro to say, which is just the statement of rigged maps and then just $10 million. And I don't quote me on this. I don't think that there's been a number that high, even with inflation, but when you're talking $10 million from a political party, perfectly legal. And then when you're talking about a statement, again, that the First Amendment protects, but that could seem improper when they're going to hear a case on the exact maps that she said are rigged.
Well, speaking about maps, were you surprised last week about Speaker Voss's decision to change his mind about nonpartisan maps?
I think it's a genuine off ramp.
You do.
I think it's a genuine
You don't think it's a
off ramp.
political?
You-
I don't.
you
I don't know if we want to vote, but I'm guessing I'll be outnumbered here
I just
in
want
this
to.
room.
I want to. You actually believe Robin Voss is capable of being genuine? That blows
I think it
my
could be.
mind.
I think it could be. Well, look. I mean, whether he is or he isn't genuine, I do think it is on paper an off ramp.
And the truth is, they did concede there was multiple amendments as far as what ended up getting passed out of the assembly. There was concessions. I think that there's a lot more room for debate, and beyond how rushed it is. But, like, I would, after there was more amendments made, I'm more on your side of, like, maybe this is a genuine offer because he sees this as a better opportunity than letting it go to the court.
Yeah, and I think that that's whether someone agrees with that or disagrees with that. I mean, the fact is that they amended it and it is out there. It was approved. It was voted out. Look, there's a Senate, right? It's not just
Mhm.
Robin Voss and Governor Evers. There's a Senate that would have to take it up exactly as is. Governor Evers would have to approve it. And then how do you juxtapose that with the timeline of this actual lawsuit and the
Mhm.
original action and the need to decide on recusal, the need to decide on it? Um, I don't know if these timelines are going to mesh, but I do think, should have been done a while ago, should have been done 6, 8 years ago, which I think some Democrats were in favor of then. And again, like we don't need to rehash this, but like, yes, the positions are changing. Um, and maybe that's healthy for a purple state like Wisconsin. Maybe it's not, and maybe this is why people don't like redistricting, because it's just generally going to favor who's ever in power.
But do you think there's a, like, and you can either speak as you, CJ, you can speak on behalf of IRG, or because I don't, this is not a main issue for the organization, but, like, do you think there is a genuine way that we could get to a point that we take partisanship out of the redistricting process and have a better process than we certainly than what we've had, but whether it's Michigan, whether it's Iowa, like, do you personally think that, like, that is an optimal goal
I think it's
or a realistic goal?
well, I look. I guess I'd be curious. Maybe I'm in the minority in this room. I think it's very hard to say that there's nonpartisan judges. I think it's very hard to say that there's nonpartisan people that can write a map without trying to inject their politics. Because I think people are political animals and people are voting. People are passionate. I mean, the stakes are very high, right? So it's very much makes sense for people to care about issues deeply. I've always been under the mindset that I find it very hard to believe that there's this fictitious group of judges or nonpartisan actors out there that can be appointed that can kind of sit in this room and just carve up maps that are going to decide the future of the state of Wisconsin and not have any biases whatsoever.
But couldn't there be is the fact and maybe this is my naivete, but like if we're using computer programs to draw these maps and there's just different inputs you can throw in, couldn't you just take out voting history as an input?
You could. I mean,
I mean, and see
it's
what it
very
spits
possible,
out?
and I think what I'm curious to see is what happens next is let's say maybe in 2024 when you're back and are we going to be able to get to the next stage of this where the state supreme court makes their decision, recusals made, and then we can kind of discuss, well, how do we want to do redistricting in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Because I guess I can see this. I'm skeptical that they're going to be able to get this through the entire legislature and that Governor Evers would sign it based on some of his, initial statements. I think this is destined to be heard in front of the court. I think that's going to make things more murky. But it'll be fascinating to see what redistricting in Wisconsin looks like in the next 6-7 years.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I can't decide if we're going to talk about the Brewers or possible bipartisanship when we come back, but it's going to be one or the other. CJ Szafier is our guest. He is the president for Institute for Reforming Government. We'll be back right after this. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. Jane Nair is here. Greg Bach is on the board, and we are talking to CJ Szafier, president of Institute for Reforming Government, about just the Wisconsin politics. And I don't know, do we have an update if the legislature has gavelled in and gavelled out on
Let me look
today's-
into that for you.
Thank you, Greg. So that is a question that we were kicking around yesterday as far as since 2020, almost every time Governor Evers has called a special session, the decision has been from the Republican leadership because they have to meet, to gavel in and gavel out and not really discuss the topic at hand. And beyond just that maneuver, but even what I've talked about last week of Governor Evers immediately saying this is a bad faith proposal when he was talking about the nonpartisan maps, and like with so much trust being broken in Wisconsin on the other side, and when someone tries to do something that's like that's not in good faith, we can't trust you, not letting the other side win, like who ultimately has to be the bigger person, and is there any hope for that? It's a big question, I know.
So remember when I was on your show maybe 3 months ago, we talked about a morning consult poll that we had commissioned about faith in different institutions. And it was 18% of Wisconsin voters have trust in state government, also Governor Evers. So 18% is incredibly low. Like we're talking about bipartisan majorities that do not express a huge amount of trust in state government. It's similar in federal government, similar with media, similar with everything. Is no one, we have just a crisis of confidence in institutions. So I think the gavel in, gavel out strategy. Here's where I'll defend at least right now, or at least right today. I think Speaker Voss is right to say, look, we already voted this stuff down in like the state budget, right? So I think if you're a Republican in the legislature, your sense is like, what's the point? We already voted on it. We already talked about it. We did a huge budget about it. Agree or disagree. We decided not to take up funding for childcare. We decided not to do some of the things that he wanted to do with workforce. We already spent almost $1 billion or billions and billions of dollars in last state budget. But Governor Evers, I think it makes sense, right? You have the bully pulpit. We're talking about it. You're talking about it. The media is talking about it. So to me, it's going to shock you. It seems very political in the sense of it's just a way to keep an issue alive that's got no chance of passing.
Well, but again, if we do whataboutism, flip the tables, the Republicans then trying to pass tax cuts again after Tony Evers cut that, right? And so is that not the same play, different side of the field of, we're putting this back in the conversation and once again trying to propose without the top bracket making this cut. And even though Evers literally just line item vetoed that, we're introducing it again. How is that different?
Now there's no right, and the only slight difference is there is a tax plan out there that's making its way through that is a little different. And so I think they could argue that at least that one tax plan that's more focused on the middle class, separate from what was passed or vetoed, is a little bit different. No, look, I mean, some of this is just divided government at play. Like it doesn't really offend me. I think it's just part of the process. I think, look, to end or to kind of keep this going and or turn into like maybe a optimistic spin.
I love that.
I think, look, the childcare, so look, there's a real philosophical divide, shocking, between Republicans and Democrats in the legislature on childcare. Democrats want a big amount of funding increase. They want to continue the funding for childcare accounts. The federal program, federal subsidies ends in a couple weeks. Dems want to do state funding to supplement that. Republicans are countering and saying, well, here's a huge package of deregulation, primarily focused on the child worker ratios, some tax incentives in there. I think in this day and age of divide politics, it's at least healthy in the sense that both sides agree that there is a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
And we don't see that. There's a lot of issues we can discuss that sides aren't even talking about the same thing. They're talking about completely separate issues. We're kind of talking about the same issues. The childcare deserts. I think they are very, very real. All the polling that we've done, all the discussions that we've had, is that access to affordable childcare is one of the main kitchen table issues across the state. And I'm heartened to see that both sides are talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Can they get something done anytime soon? I'm not as confident because I think there's a real philosophical disagreement of how to proceed. But at least we have an agreement that there's a problem. Is that a good thing, right?
I guess that is. I think you're probably right as far as like not even being on the same page, not even proposing the same policies on the same issues, and it'd just be interesting to see of like looking at data, right? Like looking at data of what actually helps. And I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't know what state has figured this out when it comes to childcare that we can look to be like, well, like as we
do it like this.
Yeah. Like whenever we've talked about reading, we bring up Mississippi all the time, right? Like, I don't know who's doing it well. I don't know. Do you?
Let me say this, and the childcare is something we're going to be doing. IRG will be very aggressive on next year. I think the problem is so multifaceted, and it's the concern is that it's very complex because you have this entire marketplace that is just broken. And I think both sides can agree that it's just broken. And we've had some issues with supply and demand that really have came out of nowhere in the last 10 years, and policymakers are not prepared for them. Well, the lack of workers, the huge demand. I think we can probably solve it, but I think it's going to take a while.
All right. Well, it always goes so fast, but I'm also excited because you said next month you have polling data from the Wow County women.
We got something good.
I mean, yeah, that'll be super exciting. Jane, you might have to have him back to talk about it.
I will come on and talk to Jane about it, and you can listen.
That would be wonderful.
Maybe I'll even call in. All right, CJ Szafier is the president of Institute for Reforming Government. We always appreciate you coming on the show, giving your opinion, and I just appreciate your friendship and the diapers.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you, CJ. All right, we'll be back right after this to talk about intergenerational friendships. Do you have any? 844-967-2789.
Let me see you through.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry, along with Jane Madnair and Greg Bach on the board. And always fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Always fun to have CJ's thoughts on things, even when we don't agree, because that's important.
Yes, it is important. And I like hearing his perspective, and it gives you something to think about.
And especially because he's not an elected official, so it's not like he's representing the politicians, but he is certainly a conservative person who I think in the same way that he had said the optimism of at least we can agree that there is a problem with childcare. And that's so often, I think, what the goal is. It's like, at least if we can agree what the problem is and we can debate over how to solve it, that is such a big step forward than just being on Over here, we're talking about CRT and transgender issues. And over here, we're talking about, free lunches and teacher retention, or like the gap between what the problem of the day is between the parties sometimes.
But I think both sides have already acknowledged that our immigration crisis is a big problem. And yet there is this refusal to do anything about it. We know it's a mess. Nobody wants to fix it.
Because then we can't run on it.
Well, and healthcare. It was the same thing with healthcare. And yes, our system is broken. What a shame. We all agree. Yep, I don't know what to do. So we'll leave it. So I think yes, of course, it's good that we can all identify a problem. Now let's identify something to do about the problem. That would really be progress.
That would really be progress. Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on, did you want to get to some of the text messages?
I did. And you can always call us or text us at 844-967-2789 or use the app because you can text us directly. Jim in Appleton, when we were talking about Janet Protasiewicz and whether or not she should be impeached or she should recuse if there is a fair map case that comes before the court. Jim in Appleton, she did say that she felt the maps are rigged. She also said she has to look at the case argument for changing them, which would lead to a not preconceived verdict. Mm-hmm. And our friend Joe McClear, Bradley voted against a rule that would have forced the state high court justices to recuse themselves in cases involving their campaign donors. And again, it's in one rule for me, another for thee. It's only bad when you do it.
Yeah.
And I find that problematic.
Do you ever do that in your own life, though? Because it's fine when you do it, but it's not fine when other people do it?
Pretty much in everything. I never said I wasn't a hypocrite, Kristin.
What is the Big Chill quote? Is rationalizations are the most important thing in life? And he goes, what about sex? It's like, have you ever gone a week without a rationalization?
Exactly. That's a great line and very accurate.
I quote that all of the time.
He's not wrong.
All right. Well, I've been sitting on this article for a while, and I wanted to get to it before I'm gone for 3 months. But I wanted to talk about intergenerational friendships and the importance of them, but also the infrequent nature of them, especially, I guess, apparently with millennials. So just to start off, we would love to hear from you. Do you have any intergenerational friendships?
So what are those parameters?
I would say, let's keep it easy, a 10+ year age difference.
Okay. Above or below? Older or younger?
Older or younger.
Okay.
So if you are 45 and you have friends in their early 30s and 20s, if you're in your 60s and have someone who is in their 80s or in their 40s, like a significant age difference where you would have been in like college when they were born. Let's kind of put it in that framework.
Okay.
But now that you're both adults, whether you work together, whether you're neighbors, whether you're in church, like different groups together, do you have friendships in your life where there's a big age gap? And we'd love to just hear the story of what those friendships have meant to you. What do you think that they've brought to your life?
Yes.
Not only despite the age difference, but also maybe because of the age difference of what that means to you. 844-967-2789. Because apparently there's a lot of perks. There's a lot of perks of having intergenerational friendships, even though they're not very common. Some 37% of Americans say they have a friend who's at least 15 years younger or older than they are, according to AARP. And they're more common with older generations.
Really?
So Gen X, because you're Gen X, right? Just Greg's just the bottom of Gen X.
I'm young Gen X.
Young Gen X. And boomers.
And I'm at the end of the boomers.
Yeah. So you both are more likely to have intergenerational friendships than me as a millennial. But those who say they have older friends say they have those pals inspire them, give them a new perspective, and act as role models. And then older folks who have younger buds say that those friends boost their energy, make them feel valued, and keep them up on trends. And it sounds like people are most likely to make those friends through work, church, temple. But they're also most likely to stand the test of time. That nearly half of those responding to an AARP survey said their intergenerational friendships have lasted over 10 years.
Wow. Well, that's really good news.
And so I just thought this, especially in my last week before I'm off, because you have, I would say, since you started this show, become literally the person that I think I talk to most in life besides my husband.
And Mom.
I may even talk to you more than I talk to my mother. I don't
Sorry
know if
about
I
that, Mom.
always talk about to Debbie Bry every single day. And we're what? Almost 30 years age difference?
Yeah.
And I certainly, I mean, it's so much obviously in a work capacity, but like I rely on you for a lot of things. And I rely on the fact that you've done a lot of this before. And so it's nice to be able to ask you those questions. And so, do you have many friends in your circle who are have you have a similar age gap with?
Well, again, and I consider you a very good friend. And so you would be the youngest
Okay.
of my friends. But there are two women that I know. We've called ourselves the Unholy Trio for a very, very,
The
very long.
unholy trio?
The Unholy
Nice.
Trio. And when we met, I was in my 30s, Monica was in her 20s, and Natalie was in her 40s. Now Natalie's in her 70s, I'm in my 60s, and Monica's in her 50s.
Okay.
And we are tight. And it's just always been, it was interesting to see Monica as the youngest grow up a little bit and get married and do those, and then have children and so it's always been interesting. It's just always interesting for these different life perspectives. What was that experience like for you? Here's what it was like for me. And even with you, there was what you read was so accurate as far as feeling valued for someone my age is really important. And I've never been treated like, well, she's just this old, bitter and jaded
I mean, I do
radio.
call you bitter and jaded sometimes, but
And I embrace that. That will be my law firm if I ever get a legal degree. But it's been really valuable. And without you, I would never have learned how to text with my thumbs.
it's true. Or use StreamYard.
Or use StreamYard
or
do
know
so many.
what to do with the Google
Well,
calendar.
exactly. So many things. And to understand your perspective of life and then future and what's important to you and what you value. So yeah, it increases the quality of life. The more you know people, the better you are.
Well, and it's interesting to think about it as another aspect of when we talk about having diverse friends of having friends who are men and women, having friends who are from different ethnicities and races, of like also the value of another pillar of diversity is age.
Age.
What about you, Greg? Do you feel like you have many good friends who are either older or younger?
I've got a lot of younger friends because of comedy. A lot of them come through. And
does the age difference come through, or is it just the commonality of comedy? It's like you're calling all comedians, and so the age difference isn't really a thing.
I mean, it shows its face when they say certain things or make certain decisions. I mean, and the same thing with my work. I work at Lakefront Brewery too. I work with a lot of people who are 10 years, if not 25 years younger than me. So,
really?
Yeah. Yeah, we have really young people. But I mean, what you said before there was important and true, which is because of them, I listen to them speak. I listen to the things they're going through. I don't, I'll throw the occasional like, oh, yeah, complain about your life, blah, 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 But I want to see all their problems and opinions as valid. And so therefore it informs who I am as a person to not discount someone who is of a certain age, because I thought at my age that my problems were the end of the world, and it's important to have someone to listen to, especially someone older who can say, hey, like just the other day I was talking to a couple of coworkers, said, hey, you guys are like 22 years old. In 10 years, the things you're stressing about right now won't matter, and it's okay. Yeah. It's very okay to be just to let it go and not like create a apocalyptic hellscape in your brain over a breakup. Because in 10 years, you're going to forget what they look like.
I've longed to have that exact conversation, Greg, with Billie Eilish.
We'll get her on the phone.
We're talking about the importance of intergenerational friendships and asking if you have any friends in your life who are 15 years older or younger than you. And we would love to hear how those friendships started, what they meant to you, and what the age difference, like how that is an asset in your friendship. 844-967-2789. And speaking of that, quickly, just to follow up on Greg's point, I was trying to get like what do young voters care about? I was talking to someone who had just graduated college, and they said, one of the things is there's a labor shortage, and they always talk about how there's so many jobs open and stuff like that, but so many of my friends can't find jobs in the thing that they studied and they graduated. I was like, that's not new.
No,
that
isn't new.
That is you study so hard, you're so interested in your academic pursuits, and you leave university with studying really interesting things, and then in your first job, because you're an entry-level person, is to cold call. And like that's not new. That's not the economy. That's just being an entry-level person.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
844-967-2789 from the 310. I'm friends with a neighbor Kristin's age. She is a young mom with 2 boys who say they think of me as the matriarch of the neighborhood. I think they see me in a grandma role. I like that role with them, but I really value their mom's friendship. She's very smart, very attuned to today's issues. She inspires me, but also teaches me about many things I wouldn't know because you talk to Jane more than me. Haha.
That's my mom. As soon as you started describing that, I was like, oh, that's Debbie. And I know exactly who she's talking about because it is. I know exactly her neighbor who is my age. And they are very good friends. Like my mom helps out with the kids as much as she can. Oh,
that's lovely.
And and so I was thinking about that as I was thinking about this topic this morning. I was like, oh, like Debbie talks to Laura all the time. And so, but yeah, we would love to talk to you as far as your intergenerational friendships. 844-967-2789 and what they have meant to you.
Angie, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to read the same text as you. Go ahead.
Angie from Monroe. I was a manager in my past in a kitchen, and to this day, I am still friends with some of those kids, and they're years younger than me. It's the older crowd I have a harder time with. I actually am having something over the row issues. Anxiety. I'm actually having anxiety over the row issues for them, not for me, but me for them.
She said to follow up saying stupid voice text.
Thank you, Angie. Again, you can check in on the app. You can call. You can text 844-967-2789. And I'm trying to think if I have more issues with older people.
Issues is a strong word. But I also, who else I have a really good, strong relationship with? Steve Scaffidi.
Who's about my age.
Who's about your age.
Yeah.
And as far as another person who we have a friendship that is, and I would say similarly, as far as it's somewhat role model, it's somewhat advice, but also I think he likes that I teach him about trends.
Absolutely.
I taught him what cuffing season was on one of the first times I was ever on his show. All right. This is As Goes Wisconsin. We'll be back in just a minute. We would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. Tell us about your intergenerational friendships. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristin Bry, along with Jane Matnair and Greg Bach on the board, and we are talking about friends who are older or younger than you and the value that brings, even though it's not a very common thing, which I guess I was thinking about it. And before I moved back to Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure almost all of my friends, because also when I was working in tech, very young.
I'm sure.
It's a very, very young industry
as
far as even the leaders at startups often are founders who are, late 20s, early 30s. And I think for a long time, like the age range of my friendships was like maybe 5 years.
But that makes sense for the industry that you were in.
And now, I wonder sometimes with big cities like that, because so many people end up moving out once they start to have kids. And it's you're less likely to have, like, when I'm big cities, I'm talking San Francisco, LA, New York, and the neighborhoods that I was living in, that I just feel like I met less people who were significantly older than me.
Well, and I think too, once you have children, as we talked about just yesterday, that you will probably find yourself spending more time with other people with children. It's true. Just the nature of Little League games and gymnastics and whatever
whatever things we put.
activities. LJ
baby.
is going to be involved.
I love that your commitment to LJ.
At least in my own brain.
You got another week of your commitment to LJ.
I might still keep calling her that.
Or the wrong name.
Yeah. It will really confuse her. I know we'll name the wrong colors. No, I'm kidding. 262 checking in with a text. I'm impressed with people who are actually able to maintain friendships at any age because it's hard work. And it is hard work.
Yeah.
And it does require effort. And I think it also requires, you can't put too many expectations on other people because they will always disappoint you. Not that you should have no expectations, but when I have made new girlfriends and I've made it very clear to them, I don't send cards, I don't send notes. I'll probably forget your birthday. I still love you.
Do you like lay that out at the beginning of the friendship?
As we are starting to get closer, it's like, I want you to know who I am.
That's interesting.
So I don't disappoint you. And if you need more than that,
do you feel like those are corners, like things that people expect? I'm like you then. Like I'm not always, I send a text, but like sending, my mom's really good at sending cards
but
and
see,
those things.
that's a generational thing.
Oh,
That's very much a generational thing. And so with women my age, again, I'm 63, and I think there's an expectation that you check in with a note or you send, I don't know, you call, you do. I haven't heard from you for 3 months. Well, we're not dating. I still love you. It's, there's been a lot going on or whatever. You have to be able to do that and let some of those disappointments slide if you want to maintain some of these relationships.
Yeah, and I also think of when the Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Sally Fields, and was it Rita Moreno were doing the 80 for Brady press tour that was way more fun than the movie ended up being. And there was a quote from Jane Fonda saying, like, when you meet someone you want to be friends with, especially at a certain age, like you have to pursue them. And she was talking about pursuing Sally Fields.
Which
Sally
is
Fields
hilarious.
Like, oh my God, she wouldn't leave me alone.
It was hilarious.
And I think about that, like with the friend I saw yesterday, who we enjoy each other's company so much, but we don't necessarily have an overlapping friend group.
Yeah.
She has 2 kids, and it is the pursuit of like, when we hang out, we're always like, we need to be closer friends, but it is work, especially at a certain age when you're like, we don't see each other every day because of work. We don't see each other every day because of school.
Yep.
And the needing to check in or needing to make time. And it doesn't have to be for a long time, but even
just to touch base.
And build those friendships regardless of age. And so, yeah, I think that was, I don't know.
It's good for you. Go out and make some friends.
Yeah, reach out to someone that you wouldn't normally reach out to.
You could be texting with your thumbs in no time at all.
All right. Well, the last thing I wanted to end on as far as a goofy, light topic, it is National String Cheese Day.
Yay!
And it makes sense that Wisconsin, America's Dairyland, invented string cheese.
Of course we did.
I did not know that until today. I got this from Up North News's newsletter this morning. But the legend has it that Frank Baker of Baker Cheese, which was originally located in St. Cloud, then it became a Wisconsin. Baker Cheese was in Wisconsin. It was a product that was created in the mid-70s after he recognized the need for a smaller, consumer-sized cheese. So he took a ball of mozzarella, stretched it into a rope, and cut it into small chunks. And he didn't think that it was going to become a lunchroom superstar, but that apparently is the legend, the origin story of string cheese.
That's awesome.
I love it. And hey, just to let you know, if you want to get some good string cheese, you can always donate blood. They now have string cheese. I went there when I donated blood, and there was 2 vegetable crisper drawers just packed with it. I'm like, I want all of these.
I know. That's one of my go-to things at Quick Trip besides candy.
Is it
It seems like a healthier option. There's a little protein in there, there's a little calcium in there. Seems like better than chips or
low
Skittles.
skim? It's low skim, and it's tasty, and it's fun to eat.
And there's only one way to actually eat it.
Yep.
Do not bite into the head of a string cheese.
If our friendship's going to survive, then you have to understand how I eat string cheese.
How do you eat? Wait, are you going to disappoint me? How do you eat string cheese?
However I want.
You don't actually string it.
If I'm
you bite into it.
If I'm feeling it, I peel. If I'm feeling it, I bite. I do what I want. I live my life, Kristin Bry.
You're just a maverick.
I'm just, you can't pin me down.
He's a string cheese maverick, baby.
Yeah.
Go,
I was going to say really quick, too, got to meet Lynn Bauer, friend of the show, sent us pictures from the Brewers game last night at Drag Bingo. She tried you calling now. Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the show, Lynn, so we can't take your call. But I met her last night at Drag Bingo, and she is absolutely lovely. It was wonderful to have met you, and I hope I see you again soon.
Oh, that's awesome. Hello, Lynn.
Hello, Lynn. What a lovely way to end today's show. So thank you to CJ Szafier for being our guest. Thank you to everyone who texted and called in. Tomorrow, we got another public cervix announcement.
Yay, Dr. Lyerly's here.
Dr. Lyerly's here. We'll talk babies and birth probably, along with any of your questions. So feel free to text or email those in. 844-967-2789 or asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us. And we also got an update from Paul Noonan for sports, go sports, and more topics as
they come up,
wherever the news takes us.
The countdown continues.
Yes.
Continues. And then Friday we'll take your baby advice. Michael Sampson, my husband, will be here, so definitely don't miss that on Friday. But we'll be back 10 a.m. tomorrow. This has been Ask Goes Wisconsin.